Right now, like as you are listening to this very second, there is a continuous chain of physical electricity firing from your pelvic floor all the way up into the center of your skull.
Hmm.
It is constantly adjusting, constantly communicating, basically keeping you upright against gravity. And if you are like most people, you are completely oblivious to it. You don't feel a thing.
Right, it's just background noise.
Exactly. So today, on this deep dive, we are going to figure out how to turn the lights on.
And what's fascinating here is that accessing this hidden system, um, it isn't about working out.
Yeah.
It is not about flexing or pushing yourself to some physical limit to feel a burn. I mean, we are dealing with a feeling so delicate that it requires an entirely different approach to how you perceive your own physical structure.
Which is hard for people, right?
No, definitely.
Yeah.
It completely flips our normal assumption that, more effort equals a better physical result.
Right, because historically when people talk about this subtle, this spreading internal sensation, it gets wrapped up in a lot of mysticism.
Yeah, the chi, energy centers, that kind of thing.
Exactly, spiritual awakenings, chakras. But our mission for this deep dive is to strip the mysticism away entirely. We are diving into a source document today that breaks down what actually happens when your body's deep postural system perfectly aligns.
Pure mechanics.
Pure mechanics. We are looking at this purely through the lens of structural biomechanics to figure out what this sensation actually is, why you aren't feeling it right now, and the physical mechanics of how to finally access it.
And looking at it biomechanically immediately forces us to look past the surface. I mean, we are so used to experiencing our biology in loud binary ways.
Like pain or fatigue.
Right, your quadriceps burn when you run, or your calf cramps, or you feel a sharp pain when you stub your toe.
Yeah.
Those are massive superficial signals. But the system we're talking about today, it operates on a completely different frequency.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can talk about how to tune into that specific frequency, I want to map out where this hidden system actually lives inside of you.
Okay, let's do it.
Because the source text gives a highly specific geography. It isn't just feel your whole body. It traces a very literal line starting down in the anterior hip, so the deep hip flexor region, then the pelvic floor, deep behind the navel, into the deep layer beneath the oblique muscles, up behind the solar plexus, continuing into the deep anterior neck, and finally terminating right up into the interior of the head.
It's a long path.
It is. And when I first read that list, I was genuinely confused. Like, how does the pelvic floor structurally connect to the inside of my head? Anatomically, these are all entirely distinct structures.
Well, they are distinct, yeah, but they are physically and functionally tethered. Let's look at the actual structures beneath those locations.
Sure.
Down in the hips, you have the iliopsoas complex. This is a massive, deep muscle group that literally bridges your lower body to your upper body, attaching the top of your femur bone directly to your lumbar spine.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then right above that, you have the pelvic floor forming the base of your core and the diaphragm forming the roof. Moving up the spine, you hit the deep cervical flexors. These are tiny muscles that sit flat against the front of your neck vertebrae. And finally, the cranial base stabilizers holding your skulls.
So you look at these like a string of old school Christmas lights.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. If they are sitting unplugged in a box, they're just distinct separate pieces of glass and wire, a hip flexor here, a neck muscle there.
Exactly.
But when the power flows, they light up as one continuous connected pathway. The current runs through the whole string simultaneously.
Yeah, and exactly how that current flows structurally is where things get really cool. Because they aren't one continuous muscle tissue, right? They function together through a tensegrity network.
Right.
They are your body's deep postural and respiratory stabilization system. When you lean slightly forward, your deep neck flexors talk to your diaphragm, which talks to your psoas, which talks to your pelvic floor. It instantly distributes the load across the whole system.
And the text points out that you can feel these areas individually. Like, I can sit here right now and isolate my pelvic floor and squeeze it.
Yep, you can.
Or I can tense my neck. But the source makes a huge distinction between doing that and actually experiencing the continuous line.
Right, because activating just one location produces a totally different sensory experience. I mean, if you isolate and squeeze your pelvic floor, it feels like a standard localized muscle contraction.
Right, like doing a bicep curl.
Exactly. You are sending a loud, conscious command to one specific set of motor units. But when this entire deep system synchronizes, when the whole string of lights turns on at once, the sensation changes entirely.
That's just a flex anymore.
No, it morphs from a localized awareness of, I am flexing a muscle,
And
to a diffuse internal expansion that gradually spreads. It becomes a whole system coordination.
which sounds amazing in theory. But here's the obvious question for anyone listening. If this whole body network is inside me, constantly firing to keep me upright in this chair while we talk, why don't I feel this awesome spreading sensation all day?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right, like if I can't feel it, does that mean my posture is completely broken and this connection is just functionally absent?
Not at all. And the source is very clear on this. A lack of perception does not mean a lack of structural integration. The mechanics are absolutely working right now.
Okay, that's a relief.
Yeah, you are sitting upright, you are breathing, your deep stabilizers are continuously firing to keep your torso from collapsing over your pelvis. The integration exists. You simply can't feel it because the signal-to-noise ratio.
The signal-to-noise ratio, meaning the signal from the deep posture system is just too quiet to hear over everything else going on.
Exactly. The signal is remarkably weak by design. From a neurological standpoint, the signals generated by your deep proprioceptive and interoceptive systems are faint.
Remind me, proprioceptive is...
Proprioception tells your brain where your joints are in space, and interoception tells your brain what is happening inside your organs and deep tissues.
Right. Got it.
The nervous system doesn't want you actively hyper-aware of every minor postural adjustment your spine makes, because that would be overwhelming.
Yeah.
So the signal is a whisper.
And what is the noise drowning it out? Because the text lists a ton of competing sensory inputs.
Oh, so many.
Our everyday emotions, our conscious thoughts, skin sensations, like even right now, if you are listening to this, pay attention to the clothes resting on your shoulders or the temperature of the air on your arms. Your brain prioritizes those external exteroceptive signals because historically, a change in your environment could mean a threat.
Yeah, the brain is always scanning for the loudest, most urgent data. But the most significant source of noise that drowns out the deep postural line isn't just thoughts or clothing.
What is it?
It is voluntary muscle contraction. Whenever you consciously clench a muscle, you generate massive neurological traffic. You flood the sensory cortex with data.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because if the signal is too quiet, human instinct is to just try harder. If I want to feel a muscle, I flex it harder. But the source material warns that trying harder is the worst possible thing you can do. Let's say I realize my posture is terrible. My shoulders are slumped.
Okay.
Instinctively, I puff out my chest. I clench my rectus abdominis, the six-pack muscle. I tighten my lats, and I yank my shoulders back by shrugging my traps. According to the text, I've just ruined the experience.
Oh, completely. You've just brought a megaphone to a quiet room.
A megaphone.
By recruiting those large superficial muscles, you completely dominate your own sensory awareness. Those superficial muscles, the rectus abdominis, the lats, the traps, the gluteus maximus, they're designed for heavy lifting and large movements. They are not designed for minute postural regulation.
Right.
When you clench them, they essentially clamp down on your rib cage and spine. This is what we call the paradox of effort.
The paradox of effort. I love that phrasing. We always assume stronger effort equals greater physical integration.
But it is the exact opposite for the deep postural system. The text is incredibly specific about this. The most coordinated deep integration requires extremely small mechanical changes. We are talking about movements of just a few millimeters.
Wait, a few millimeters. Let me push back on that for a second.
Sure.
My head weighs something like 10 or 12 pounds. It's basically a bowling ball resting on top of my cervical spine. You are telling me that a few millimeters of micro adjustment deep in my core is what keeps that bowling ball balanced, and I don't need to heavily flex my neck and shoulder muscles to hold it up. That feels structurally, I don't know, mechanically impossible.
I get that. It feels impossible if you think of the body like a crane lifting a heavy load, which requires brute force. But the body operates on tensegrity.
Tensegrity.
Right. Think of a bicycle wheel. The spokes are incredibly thin, but because the tension is perfectly distributed across the entire structure, it can support a massive amount of weight.
Okay, I can picture that.
When your skeleton is aligned, your deep postural muscles act like those spokes. They only need to adjust by millimeters to maintain the tension. When you try to force your posture by clenching your traps and lats, you warp the bicycle wheel.
Oh, wow.
You introduce uneven, massive tension that throws the whole system out of balance. The deep stabilizers get drowned out entirely by the noise of the superficial muscles fighting each other.
Okay, so flexing, straining, and sucking in my gut completely backfired. What physical conditions actually allow this tiny millimeter level signal to cross the perceptual threshold?
Well,
Because this brings us to a part of the text that looks at meditation postures through a purely biomechanical lens.
yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it completely strips the mysticism away from thousands of years of tradition. When you look at classic sitting or standing meditation postures, like the lotus position or Tai Chi standing postures, they're not just arbitrary cultural or spiritual tradition.
They actually have a physical purpose.
Exactly. Structurally, they are biomechanical engineering marvels designed to achieve that exact condition of minimal unnecessary effort.
Let's break down the mechanics of that. The goal of these postures is to balance the skeletal alignment perfectly, right? You stack the cervical spine directly over the rib cage, you stack the rib cage directly over the pelvis, and you balance the pelvis squarely over the hips.
hmm And when you achieve that perfectly stacked, neutral position, something remarkable happens to the physics of your body. The center of gravity runs straight down through the bony structures.
Right.
Because the skeleton is bearing the load efficiently, the large superficial muscles on the outside of your body, the noisemakers, can finally shut off. They are no longer needed to keep you from falling over.
And once those loud muscles shut up, the room is quiet enough to hear the whisper.
You got it. And the whisper itself is generated by your breath.
Really. Just
Yeah.
breathing.
Just breathing. In that
Hmm.
neutral, perfectly stacked state, your normal breathing causes incredibly subtle internal fluctuations. As the diaphragm descends with an inhale, it gently pushes on the abdominal cavity.
Oh, right, because it has to go somewhere.
Exactly. The text notes that the deep continuous line, the iliopsoas, the pelvic floor, the deep cervical stabilizers, all participate in managing these minute respiratory movements. They stretch and contract by tiny fractions of an inch to accommodate the pressure change, all without requiring any large voluntary effort.
But hold on. If the ultimate biological goal here is relaxation, reducing superficial muscle noise, and achieving minimal effort,
Yeah.
why sit up at all? Like, why not just lie flat on the floor? Wouldn't lying completely supine on a comfortable couch be the absolute lowest possible effort?
It is the lowest effort, but it completely defeats the purpose.
How so?
When you lie supine, gravity is doing all the work. The floor is entirely supporting your skeleton. Because gravity is placing virtually zero demand on your postural structure to stay upright, your deep stabilizing network basically powers down to sleep mode.
Because there's no bowling ball to balance anymore. The head is just resting on the floor.
The demand is gone. Furthermore, because you aren't actively supporting your own structure against gravity, the mechanical changes produced by your breathing don't cascade through the deep postural line in the same way.
The tension is gone from the bicycle wheel.
Exactly. So the signal goes from a whisper to completely silent. Sitting and standing naturally demand continuous, low-level postural regulation. You need just enough structural tension to resist gravity.
Okay, that makes sense.
That tension keeps the deep stabilization network active and humming. As long as you keep your superficial muscles quiet by stacking your skeleton efficiently, the deep network is active enough to finally be perceived.
That makes total mechanical sense. So we've mapped out where the sensation lives, from the pelvis to the skull. We know why our daily habits of clenching and stressing mask it, and we know that neutral, gravity-challenging postures help us access it by silencing the superficial muscles. But we still have to answer the core biological question of the source material. What exactly is this feeling? Because it's clearly not just a bicep flexing.
No, it's not. And the text is careful to point out that we don't have one singular, definitive physiological basis for this. It isn't just one nerve firing. Instead, it offers a structural hypothesis
Which is?
that the feeling is a massive orchestration of multiple subtle internal events interacting simultaneously.
Right. Let's look at the mechanical reality of what is happening inside the torso when the deep line synchronizes. First, you have the low-level activation of slow-twitch postural muscles. These are muscles designed for endurance, not explosive power, humming at a very low frequency. Then you have fascial tension redistribution.
Which is crucial. Fascia is the web of connective tissue wrapping every muscle and organ. When your pelvic floor engages slightly, it tugs on the fascial web, which pulls on the diaphragm, which pulls all the way up into the deep neck. It physically distributes mechanical force throughout the body.
So you're feeling the web pull taut. On top of that, you have respiratory pressure changes. Every time you inhale, the diaphragm drops down like a piston. That increases the physical pressure inside your abdomen and decreases the pressure in your chest cavity. It's a literal hydraulic pressure shift.
And those pressure shifts impact the microcirculatory system. As pressure changes and deep muscles engage, tiny capillary beds open up, slightly altering blood flow deep within the tissues.
Oh, wow.
Finally, you have the deep interoceptive processing in the central nervous system, trying to synthesize all this incredibly faint data into a single conscious feeling.
So what does this all mean? How do we conceptualize a feeling made up of so many different biological systems? I look at this like listening to a massive choir performing in an acoustically perfect hall.
I love that.
Right. You are sitting there experiencing this beautiful sweeping wall of sound. You can't point to the bass section or the sopranos or the altos and say, that specific voice is the song.
No, you can't.
It's inappropriate to say this internal sensation is just the microcirculation of blood, or just the fascial tension web, or just the slow twitch muscle firing. The feeling is an emergent property.
The magic is in the harmony. If you isolate just one system, the emergent feeling vanishes entirely. This structural hypothesis completely reframes how we should view posture. Posture isn't a goal. It isn't a rigid military stance you have to force yourself into.
Chest out, chin tucked.
Exactly, no. Posture is merely a method of creating favorable mechanical circumstances. By organizing your skeleton efficiently, you reduce the competing signals. You create the acoustically perfect hall.
That's a great way to put it.
You silence the superficial noise, which allows the harmony of those low-amplitude, deeply internal interactions to finally be felt.
It fundamentally changes how you inhabit your own physical body. To summarize this deep dive for you listening, accessing your body's deep internal connections is not about working harder or flexing more. It is quite literally about getting quieter. It's about finding a mechanical structural balance against gravity so that your deep postural system can operate without the deafening megaphone noise of your superficial muscles clenching and straining.
As a practical takeaway for the listener, the next time you are sitting at your desk or, standing in line at the grocery store, I want you to rethink your stance. Check in with your body right now.
Are you clenching your jaw?
Right. You sucking in your stomach? Are your shoulders hiked up towards your ears? Don't think about your internal architecture as a set of heavy muscles that need to be aggressively forced into good posture. Think of it as a subtle, highly calibrated tensegrity system that is just waiting to be listened to. See if you can reduce the unnecessary effort, stack your skeleton, and just breathe.
And if this incredibly subtle internal network gets drowned out so easily by loud sensory input and emotional stress, it leaves us with a pretty heavy realization.
Yeah, it does.
Because we live in a modern, hyper-stimulating world. We are surrounded by constant screens, endless notifications, high-stress commutes, and constant cognitive demands that make us physically tense up.
All day long.
It makes you wonder, are we chronically drowning out our own internal signals? Are we structurally losing touch with ourselves simply because our environment is too loud for our nervous system to hear our own posture?
That's a powerful thought.
It is definitely something to mull over the next time you catch yourself gripping the steering wheel a little too tight. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
Thank you.
Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we will catch you on the next one.